Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome back to another Godzilla live watch along, and we are going to be doing 1964's Mothra versus Godzilla. Sorry, this was such a well. I don't know if I'd say it's a late notice. I mean, I announced last week after King Kong versus Godzilla that I would be doing this after words on Tuesday, but I just had a late time to start. But nevertheless, we are starting this right now. But before we get into that, I want to say welcome to those who are currently in the stream right now. You got Spiderus Prime in the chat. Welcome. And then we have three other watchers who are just lurking there silently watching. Don't be shy. Come on down to the chat. Say hi. Interact with everyone. We're going to start the movie really soon, but before we do that, I want to say thank you to everyone who watched the Hollywood Critics Association Movie and TV Trivia-thon. We managed to raise a total of $1,189. So much appreciate to everyone who donated, and I hope you all had fun in terms of actually playing the game. I hope you feel like you did well. I hope you did well. I played along, and I know I did terribly. Absolutely. There were categories I did well. Other categories I just bombed in. And big thanks to all of our celebrity guests who came in, such as Edgar Wright, Leah Thompson, Ruthie Carter, Zoe Deutsch. I hope that's how I pronounced her last name, but basically if you didn't know, she's Leah Thompson's daughter. But we had a really successful first trivia-thon, so thank you guys for helping out. It was a ton of fun, and with all that, I cannot speak properly. All that out of the way, welcome Razorbike to the stream. We're gonna start the movie right away because there is nothing really to promote, nothing new going on. Yeah, this is Mothra vs. Godzilla, often regarded as one of the best in the Godzilla series. I reviewed this movie back in 2018, and I like the movie, but in terms of being one of the absolute best of the series, I can't agree with that. And I will get to those reasons as we go through the movie. So with all that being said, let's just start the movie. Justin Toner, welcome to the chat. Okay, so I'm going through the Criterion and Janus Films logos. Now we're at the Toho logo. And this is the first time American audiences would ever hear the Godzilla theme. Okay, so Justin Toner says he has not watched the Japanese version before. There's only a few minor differences. Unlike the last three Godzilla movies, this version was not heavily re-edited. It mostly sticks true to the original Japanese cut, with a few differences that I'll get into a little bit. And this is kind of, even though King Kong vs. Godzilla had a lot of the same crew, Tomi Tanaka, the same screenwriter, Ishiro Honda, Ifukube, Eiji Tsuburaya, I think this movie was more the one that kind of set in tone how, like, the best films of the Showa era. Because, again, King Kong vs. Godzilla was lost to us in America. It was heavily re-edited, so nobody could officially watch the Japanese version of that movie until just last year. And this movie is kind of the starting point for how, like, the best Godzilla movies in the Showa era would pan out. And in my opinion, I think there are only three in a row. Okay, so all those are obviously miniatures, but the tent that blew over had to be. The miniature looked like it. No, not the miniature. The tent that blew over. It looked like it could have been an actual full size tent. There's a miniature boat. That's the main difference between the Japanese and American versions is that there's a scene that's entirely missing. Which again, Justin Toner mentioned it in the chat, but I'll bring it up once we get to it in the movie. So I think that it's clear they're trying to make the trying to recreate the like dynamics in the original Mothra film between the news reporter and the photographer. So that's why she's taking her time. Yeah, respect your photographers, Takarada. It is weird. It is weird that with King Kong versus Godzilla and this movie, that Godzilla is second build. I guess because he was more still the villain at this point. And in terms of King Kong, giant egg. Why not? Just comes out of nowhere. Um, Back in the days, King Kong was actually still more popular than Godzilla in Japan or worldwide. So I think that it makes sense that King Kong was billed above Godzilla in that movie. And with this movie being called Mothra versus Godzilla, I think it's just because Godzilla's the villain still. Oh, hey, that's the crazy the mayor in Yojimbo. I don't think that was meant to be Godzilla's skin. I think that was part of Mothra's egg. Because it's definitely more... It was definitely more colorful. It's only a model. Shh. I'm going to keep quoting Holy Grail during those moments where it's clearly a model. Those model boats. That's a good compositing shot. That's obvious. Obvious rear projection, but that's... Wonder how much of, like... Obviously, they did not build a giant egg, so it had to have been... I wonder, like, what's actually off frame? How much of the egg did they actually build? Sure, why not? Just quickly. Okay, notice all the people in the background. Are they supposed to be extras, like way in the background? Are they supposed to be extras, or are they just minding their own business while they're filming? Asshole. Yeah, that final duel in Sanjuro is it's cool. Yeah, but Yojimbo had the better ending in my opinion. I still need to get that Steelbook Blu-ray of Mothra because that's one of my top 100 favorite movies. Period. There's Kenji Sahara again. With a cigar, so you know he's evil. And he's wearing those, like, tinted sunglasses. Daquan, Tate, welcome to the stream. I'm doing good. Just watching, just, thanks for tuning in for Mothra versus Godzilla. Okay, if you think a woman's voice belongs to a spy that you refer to as him, then you've got more problems than I could solve. I'm sure that big stash of money will pop up later. Oh, the peanuts. I don't know, like, if them hiding behind that plate was a compositing shot or if it was actually um, or if they actually had to build a giant version of that just for the peanuts to hide, or if that's all a set there, because there's shadows. That's got to be like actual set, like giant furniture that they had to build for them to interact of. If it's giant sets, that's impressive. The Peanuts, yeah, they played the Mothra twins in the original Mothra, and then in this movie, and then one more time in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I'm not sure why they didn't play the twins in Ebirah Horror of the Deep, since it was the movie after Invasion of the Astro Monster, but they only played the fairies twice. That's obviously a compositing shot because you can kind of tell by the outlines of the two. So this is supposed to be not only a sequel to King Kong versus Godzilla, but also the original Mothra. It would have been. I think it would have been cool if Hiroshi Koizumi was his same character from Mothra, because I mean they're both scientists, so they might as well be the same character. And I'll be making that same claim with the next movie, on how these same actors keep popping up, but they're different characters, and yet they should pretty much be playing the characters from the previous film. That egg looks tiny in comparison to the rest of that set. Like, these shots of the egg floating away, I don't get the impression that it's a giant egg. Okay, I don't think these natives are in. I think that how do I phrase this correctly without sounding like offensive? But I'm pretty sure the natives here are just like the actors playing the natives weren't sprayed with a different color to make them appear darker, like in King Kong versus Godzilla. So in that sense, it's a lot less cringeworthy to watch. Okay, she just laying there that whole time? Like, how did Mothra like land in that spot close by and no one notice her? Like, it's not really that hard to not notice a giant moth. You know, it's a damn shame that these two must have been under a rock when Mothra was taking place because they know they you should know to not piss off Mothra. Like, Those bastards. Yeah, I don't think. Well, first of all, Shay Smithers, welcome to the chat. Yeah, I don't think. I think this might be the only movie that Kenji Sahara is in where he plays a villain. Unless, of course, I think. No, I think he just it went. I can't remember if he. God, I can't remember if he was in Matango or not. um, but yeah, in a lot of the other Godzilla movies, he's normally a good guy. Okay, so was Mothra just chilling there? Okay, I'm more focused on the fact that Mothra could just stay there uh, an entire day without nobody noticing her than I am with the Peanuts being able to speak as softly as they are to the main characters who are far away. That is a big door. There's the Faroe Island translator right there. Stop being so greedy. That's for lack of a better word, rich. Okay, Kenji Sahara was in Matango. There you go. Godzilla versus Forrest Gump in a ping pong battle. That's such a random crossover. I don't even know how to answer that. So is that supposed to be his wife or his assistant? Oh, those weren't doors. Those were giant incubators. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now. Now I forget this scene here. Um, like, are they just? I forget. Are they going through that just meeting with Hiroshi Koizumi or? Yeah, I forget this little scene completely. Okay, now I'm more confused than ever because that I thought that wasn't like it definitely looks colorful like Mothra's. Okay, yeah, now I'm really confused because it looks colorful, but it's radioactive, and then touching Mothra's egg clearly was not an issue. So that must be Godzilla's skin. Yeah, uh th- if there's one thing that like this scene and this entire year has proven, testing is important. Like if you test something right away, then you can avoid disasters. And in this movie's case, they could have known ahead of time that he was right there. This is probably the weirdest entrance for Godzilla. Like this one of the I saw this movie much later, and it was so bizarre that Godzilla came out of the sand. Like, what was he doing for 2 years under there? There's something about this Godzilla that's just really, this suit that's just really wobbly. Like the fingers, especially his upper lips. I don't know. It's not a suit that I dislike. It's just there's something about it that doesn't really, I don't know. The wobbliness just kind of weirds me out. There's a Godzilla puppet way off in the distance. There's a suit in kind of a blurry image. And I imagine Shin Godzilla was inspired by this shot here. Yeah, one negative I have to say about the movie uh, is that a lot of the like compositing shots of Godzilla, where they composite him in the background of a real setting, it does not look good at all. And this is the 35-minute mark, and Godzilla's already shown up. Yeah, like there's just something about the compositing shots that's so fuzzy and the colors faded. And again, I think this might have to do with the, like I mentioned in Godzilla Raids Again. If this movie were in black and white, it would be easier to hide, like, the obvious compositing shots. But this movie is in color, so what can you do? Yeah, Godzilla's pretty clumsy in this rampage sequence. Because he gets his tail stuck on that tower and nearly trips once he gets out of it. And then this moment coming up where Godzilla destroys this pagoda uh, is another result of clumsiness. Yeah, yeah, right there. Like, Godzilla doesn't really destroy that thing as much as he just kind of falls into it. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, Razorbike. I meant to, you put up a, write that comment again because, for some reason it was held for review. Okay, I'm sorry about hiding a comment, Razor Razorbike. Yeah, this sequence right here, rather than getting a briefing by the Japanese Self-Defense Force on how to handle Godzilla, what we would have gotten was the Frontier missile attack sequence. And yeah, we would have gotten the Frontier missile attack sequence right after this shot. And it was in the Japanese trailers. I think the reason it was cut out of the Japanese version was because um, because it involved Americans firing on Japanese soil, which, you know, 19 years after uh, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, maybe don't want to do that. These always having an egg. It's funny in the American version. Um, he says, "Do you think I should get a raise for coming up with that comment?" But whatever. He made that actor. I forget his name, but he could have made when the Japanese Spider-Man came around. It's a shame that that series didn't really have much to do with the comics because he could have made a great Japanese J. Jonah Jameson. Okay, there was another comment here. Have you ever planned on doing a Disney month? Uh, I'll say this. Uh, I have planned on it, and that's all I will say. I can't say any more than that because I want it to be a surprise. Okay, you want to talk about some. You want to talk about some Mandela effect nonsense. Because I saw this movie like after I've seen, I think half of the series. I always thought that Infant Island was Monster Island. So I could have sworn this is where the Mandela effect plays in, but I could have sworn that they called it Monster Island in the dub. Okay, if I were on Infant Island with them, I would be freaking the hell out that there is a skeleton of a turtle moving its head back and forth. And shouldn't they be wearing more protective gear than just like yellow jumpsuits with no mask on? I hope they do put Rodan and War of the Gargantuas on Blu-ray. They have it, so I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Okay, they're red. The spray painted red. I don't know if that's more offensive than the Faroe Island natives or if that's just as offensive. Especially considering the rest of the natives are not. This is a rabbit hole I am not going down on. It's called Mothra Island in the dub. That explains why I kept thinking it was referred to as Monster Island. It's amazing how underneath those radiation suits, they're all dressed to impress. I would think if I was going on expedition to an island, I would dress more comfortably. But whatever, that's a nitpick. The juice is red, so they could have just gotten dirty. I don't buy it. You slob. That's Gandalf. Yeah, you have a point, Justin Toner. Because they're trying to replicate the natives from the original King Kong. So, given that they're Japanese and not African American, that's what makes it more offensive. But the guys that are just like spray painted red, they come across as like Native Americans, which I guess that's another form of offense. Okay, not going down that rabbit hole. I am not going down that rabbit hole. So no one bothered to stop them. Oh hey Bond, James Bond 007. Well hey, a mother's birthday is probably more important than watching a Godzilla movie again. I was about to ask if the uh, the chief of Infant Island was also the chief of Faroe Island because they got the same voice, but I guess if you put someone in a beard, they complete and if you put someone in a beard and make them look like Gandalf, they become completely unrecognizable. Okay, here's something. Here's one of my big issues with the movie. Or maybe this is a nitpick. Maybe this is a legit criticism, but like they know Godzilla's rampaging through Japan, and the egg is in danger, so they refuse to help, even if that means the egg would be destroyed. Yeah, Will. I mean, I did a review back in 2018, like I said at the beginning of this stream, and I lay out specifically why I do not think this is one of the best movies, or at least not one of my favorites. So we'll get to that point when we get to it. But just as I'm rewatching this movie, there's a lot that I do not like in comparison to some of the other Godzilla movies. I mean, it's not a bad movie in the end, but there is stuff that I excuse me. There are some things that just it's kind of like with Spider-Man 2 where like it's a good movie, but there's so many problems with it that I'm amazed people like don't acknowledge them. Okay, so the chief of Faroe Island and Infant Island are the same actor. Cool. And then they all just randomly start praying. Yeah, this is a moment that really like makes things more intense. That Mothra actually is weak, so her going off to fight Godzilla is a big risk. $20 to $30 million. That's definitely an upgrade from the last plan, or the last movie where it was 1 million volts. Remake of Godzilla versus Gigan, only to make it a better movie, because that is my least favorite in the Showa era, because of all that damn stock footage. With Destroy All Monsters, on the other hand, uh, I don't think it's possible to do a remake of Destroy All Monsters and make it better, because every Godzilla fan wants to see all the monsters, but I don't think it's possible to put in all the monsters. Like you gotta put in the most iconic monsters. You can't, because nobody wants to see Kamakuras or Kumanga. Nobody wants to see Gabra or the Giant Condor. There's just a lot of monsters that are just kind of useless. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what Toho has in store with Godzilla once A, the world gets back on track, and B, Godzilla versus Kong comes out. Meanwhile, So did he just set up an entire hut? You'll have to shout. It's interesting that when Eiji Tsuburaya directs the special effects for a movie, he tries to make it as tame as possible. So very little blood, very little like actual big violence. Meanwhile, Shiro Honda is like, I'm gonna have Kenji Sahara's face get punched in, and he's gonna bleed. Like his mouth is just gonna be filled with blood. And then I'm later gonna have this guy get shot in the head. Yeah, that's true. That like, I mean, the original Godzilla did show how indestructible Godzilla could be, but this one also emphasized that fully, especially since they throw more at Godzilla than they did in the 1954 film. It's not really a shot to the head as much as it's just a dash of blood. But in the American version, rather than seeing him get shot, it cuts to a shot of Godzilla, and and then it cuts back to him being on the floor dead. So, and that actually lends itself to a pretty cool musical transition. It would make sense. It's hard to describe, but it would make sense if you saw the American version or if you've seen it. Yeah, that building's coming down. This movie and King Kong versus Godzilla really are two like good parallels to each other. I mean, not just in the sense that it's Godzilla fighting another monster, but where he's second build, but like it shows how greed can really like cause problems. I mean, King Kong versus Godzilla, it's more satirical. Like that movie, as I mentioned before, is a straight up comedy, and this movie tackles like how greed can bring harm to others, but in a more serious manner. So that's something I appreciate with this movie. You know, Godzilla could use his hands to tear it apart or set it on fire. Like he could take care of this a lot quicker than it's taking him. Yeah, in the Japanese version, the music keeps going until this point, and I think it's just a cooler. I think it's a cooler transition for music. Yeah, that's not a good Mothra puppet. There we go. That's a better one. And there's the image I have. So, do the fairies just teleport? I mean, they're tiny magical beings, so I guess I can't really question the logic of how they get around or how they communicate with people. But, whatever. Here's one of my here's one of my other issues with this movie, and some of it's not as big as other points in the movie that would come later on. But this kind of, I mean, this whole fight, there are a lot of close-up shots of Mothra and even Godzilla later on in this fight to where you can't really tell what's going on. And it also kind of plays into Godzilla's clumsiness in this movie. Like, I get Mothra's hurricane winds are strong, so that part I don't have a problem with. But it's one thing. It's the fact that Godzilla can fire his atomic breath during this fight so often, and just miss constantly. Like, is he missing or? Because Mothra is. They've indicated Mothra is clearly weak, so either she had no effect for a while, or Godzilla really is that clumsy. But Mothra really is putting up a fight, I gotta say. Like, she is dragging Godzilla far. This movie also starts another tradition that I'm mixed upon, considering, like, depending on the movie, where all the human characters are reduced to is just watching the monsters fight. This shot here, where Mothra comes in close up to Godzilla, and the way it moves, I thought it was stop motion for a second because it just looked bizarre. But no, it's clearly like being shot at a bizarre frame rate. There's those puppets again. You know, I never get tired of when this series uses hand puppets. See, look here. Like, too many close-up shots of, like, Godzilla's head. Like, what is happening? And there's Godzilla. No, Godzilla's pollen. Mothra's pollen. I think it's funny that in the NES game, the way they portray Godzilla's... God, I'm doing it again. Mothra's pollen is like she's just dropping wings. Yeah, see, like Godzilla, like they're moving at a frame rate to where it looks like stop motion in a lot of these shots. Yeah, it really does look like stop motion because of how fast they're moving. Oh, there's Godzilla falling down another hole. One thing I do really like about Mothra in any movie she's in, outside of the original, because she's on her own in the original, is that even though Mothra dies, like in most of the movies she's in, even from Beyond the Grave, Mothra always plays a critical part in the defeat of the villain monster. It is kind of sad that Mothra just kind of Like, see Mothra slowly die there. Damn that monster. You know, you could just jump off. Do they? I haven't seen. It's been a couple of years since I've seen Tokyo SOS again, but I don't remember if they ever say. I don't remember if they ever said it was her scales. I mean, I would think so because the only subtitles for that movie that I have are those crappy dub titles, as they're called. But we've got a while before we get to Tokyo SOS. And so here's some weird continuity errors uh, with this movie and then Thursday's movie, Ghidorah, is that it was day when Mothra fought Godzilla and died. And now it's nighttime? I love how the one newspaper employee is still there and nobody even like acknowledges him. Like, what are you doing here? Yeah, there's one like iconic moment in this action scene coming up somewhere. I don't think it's not there, but it not only demonstrates how indestructible Godzilla is, but just how much of a badass Haruo Nakajima is when it comes to playing Godzilla. Right there, Godzilla's head is on fire. Uh, for a tiny bit, and Nakajima just keeps on going. Like, he doesn't care that his head's on fire. I mean, his actual head is in the neck, where Godzilla's gills are. But the fact that Nakajima could just continue going, even though part of the suit's on fire, just shows how much of a badass he was as a suit actor. I don't know if I'd say Mothra is the equivalent of Deus Ex Machina. That's because I mean that's just her character. I mean it's not really Deus Ex Machina because they already established the egg in the beginning of the movie. Um, so like it's not like the egg just comes out of nowhere. This sequence goes on forever. Like it's just so okay. It started around the 1 hour and 9 minute mark. So I'm gonna when the egg hatches, I'm gonna come back and see how long it took for that egg to hatch and for this whole song to continuously play. I mean, luckily we cut back to another action scene with Godzilla, but Like, it's weird. Like, it's nighttime after Mothra dies, and then it goes back to being daytime. Did our main characters just spend the night with Mothra's corpse? I have seen Cinemassacre's Monster Madness. Yeah, I love those reviews that James Rolfe did. And it was actually through him that I started getting more into horror movies. Because I was already a Godzilla nut long before his Godzilla-thon. But it's because of him that I started getting more into horror films, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw. The list goes on. Raheem Frazier, welcome to the chat. Glad you could join us. Yeah. I mean, I think Godzilla's still weak. Like, Godzilla's clearly still hurt or irritated by electricity. So I wouldn't say he's immune to it. Especially with what's coming up soon. Oh, sorry. Long day, guys. I have no idea why this movie was called Godzilla versus the Thing in America. I mean, when I first saw it, the VHS tape I had was called Godzilla versus Mothra, and that's what it said on the VHS tape. But I think that was another case where Toho requested that a new title card be shown instead of Godzilla versus the Thing, because that title makes no sense at all. Because throughout the whole movie, they mention Mothra, 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 Mothra. And then when Mothra shows up to fight Godzilla, the photographer goes, "Oh, look, the Thing." And you're just like, wait, the Thing? You mean Mothra? It's a problem with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in its U.S. release. See, right here, like, Godzilla's clearly getting hurt by those 20 to 30 million volts of electricity, which is clearly the limit to what they can, yeah, it's clearly the limit that they can do. And this is a cool moment where it's like, they almost got Godzilla, but it overheated. And so Godzilla can fight back. There's that puppet again. Yeah, he is clearly indestructible. Oh, this part. Thank you, Razorblade. Um, okay, first of all, like, an interesting bit of trivia. This part where the score comes up, apparently through the commentary by Ed Gutschewski and Steve Reifel, Honda and Ifukube debated on whether or not this sequence should have music when Godzilla pops up. Ifukube said no. I think it was Ifukube. Ifukube said no. Honda wanted to. And Honda didn't tell Ifukube. Ifukube didn't find out that music would be put in that section until he saw the movie. And I think he was irritated. Somebody in the chat correct me if I'm wrong, because I could totally be wrong. And it's been 6 minutes since the Mothra song started to hatch the egg. And again, this is going on forever. And yeah, Razor Bike, thank you for bringing this up. Like, it's at this point in the movie where I cannot get on board with calling this one of the best of the series. For multitudes of reasons, but we'll just let the sequence play out before I get to those reasons. Oh, Godzilla versus the Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing, that would be amazing. It's still going on. There's a rave going on in that egg. So I know there was a Godzilla action scene intercut between the beginning of the song and now, but it took nearly 10 minutes for that egg to hatch. Here's another thing. Here's another bit of trivia with me seeing this movie. The first time, my only exposure to Mothra before this movie was in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, where she was just the worm. And it didn't even register to me, like, the monster's name was Mothra. And so to see the two worms come out of the egg, I'm just like, oh, there's the connection. Okay, I get it now. And he's back. Okay, this is where, in my opinion, like, the first 2/3 of this movie are great. That suit right there where Godzilla's in the water, that's actually the suit from King Kong versus Godzilla. You'll get a better shot of it near the end of the movie. But, again, I think the first 2/3 of the movie is great. The first 2/3 alone is some of the best of the series. But the second the Mothra larva hatch from the egg, and we have to deal with this subplot where kids are being stranded on an island, the movie starts to become hot garbage for me. Because this is an element that just comes out of nowhere. And then, like, it just feels like, let me pull up the screenwriter's name, because I know his name just keeps escaping me. Shinichi Sekizawa. It seems like he didn't know how to end this movie properly, so we just brought in this, like, dumb subplot where we needed we needed our human characters to do something proactive. And again, going back to Godzilla's clumsiness throughout the entire movie, the fact that he loses pathetically to two newly born caterpillars, It just makes it my least favorite Godzilla movie moment ever. Oh, you can see the little wheels underneath the larva that's carrying them. But yeah, Godzilla should have easily like taken care of these Mothra larvae instantly. But I don't know. Which is worse, Godzilla Final Wars or All Monsters Attack? I might be crucified for this, but I think Final Wars is worse. Final Wars is worse for me. Well, I mean, we'll get to both those movies later on, but Final Wars feels like the director didn't want to make a Godzilla movie. Like like that movie feels like it's a Godzilla movie second, and just some bland, generic Matrix ripoff first. But again, we'll get to that movie when we get to it, because somebody actually, I can't remember who, somebody commented on my Godzilla Final Wars review from 2 years ago that I need to re-review that movie to give it a good review. I'm like, why would I do that? No, no, it's never confirmed. Oh wait, there was a comment that just came up that it was confirmed that Godzilla killed one of the larvae. No, no, they just say in Ghidorah 3 and Monster, they just say that Mothra, the other Mothra larva, died. Yet somebody could make the argument that Godzilla's toying with the larva, but just considering how clumsy he's been throughout this entire movie, I don't, I don't know. Yeah, that part I get. Like I understand that. Again, you need to have our human characters be proactive rather than just like standing up to the side watching the monsters fight. And it does play into like the good of humanity, considering that uh, a bunch of greedy businessmen kind of put everyone in danger by not returning Mothra's egg and just like having Godzilla come towards it. Um, but it still feels tacked on. It still doesn't feel like this movie has a proper ending. And again, I cannot excuse the fact that Godzilla loses so terribly to these two larvae. Like this is just not a good monster versus monster scene. Like Godzilla should at least put up a fight, but he really doesn't. Like he fires his atomic breath a couple times, but all he does throughout this entire sequence is just kind of wave his arms around like an idiot. And that's it. Yeah, he totally no Mothra dodges it, so I'll give him some slack there. I do watch Brandon's cult movie reviews. He's funny. Yeah, his reviews are pretty funny. See, honestly, I think Tokyo SOS takes this sequence where Godzilla fights the Mothra larva and makes it make sense. Which again, we'll get to Tokyo SOS within a few months because there's 35 of these movies if you count the Roland Emmerich movie, and we have 31 movies to go once this is done. So yeah, again, I mentioned this earlier, but this suit is completely new to this movie because it's more lightweight. It's a skinnier looking Godzilla. I have seen the Nostalgia Critic's review for Zilla back when I actually watched the Nostalgia Critic and back when he was funny. Sorry, I do not like the Nostalgia Critic nowadays. But anyway, yeah, that's the suit. That Godzilla suit has been used throughout the entirety of this movie. And coming up, when Godzilla falls into the ocean, they use the suit from King Kong versus Godzilla. I think it's coming up. Right there. That's the King Kong versus Godzilla suit that falls into the ocean. And you could tell by the head. Yeah, it's just kind of a... It's a weak ending to me, honestly. You could barely see the twins on top of one of the larva's head. This is the most nervous and awkward wave I've ever seen. And then later that year, a giant three-headed dragon would crash into Earth. So there you go, Mothra versus Godzilla. Again, I still think it's a good movie, but that last act just does not work for me. I tried. Every time I watch this movie, I want to give that ending a shot, but I just can't. It's an ending that does not work for me at all. Sorry, but yeah, that's Mothra versus Godzilla. I want to thank you all for coming in. Again, I want to continue supporting all of the interaction going on with the chat amongst you guys. I see a lot of you interacting and really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the channel, tuning into these watch-alongs. Now, as I mentioned, Thursday we'll be jumping into Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which, in my opinion, is not only one of the best Godzilla movies, but is actually my second favorite of the entire series. So I can't wait to rewatch that movie again. But yeah, again, thank you guys for tuning in. If you really like what I'm doing and you want to help support more watch-alongs, you can go over to patreon.com/The Real Mr. Robinson, and for only $1 a month, you'll be able to get access to exclusive watch-alongs. They're not. I don't have enough Patreon subscribers to start doing it, but hopefully soon. If you cannot support financially, then that's fine. Your YouTube subscriptions and just sharing my channel and videos is well enough. Like, I will take that regardless. And yeah, tune in Thursday for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I might start a little earlier, back around 7 o'clock. I had to start a little later today for other reasons, but hopefully Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, that watch-along will start back around 7. So we'll see. Until next time, this is The Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.